Hello, my name is Gary, and I'd like to show you how the next step goes about. We're going to release the queen. So by this time you've already installed your bees. They've been in there for about 4 days. And on the 4th day, it's time to release the queen so the colony can begin to grow. And so when you come to your hive, it'll be set up just like it should be as it's growing, and you take the block off the top, of course. And then probably should be able to lift the top off. They won't have propolized it, but if it's stuck a little, simply put your hive tool underneath, pry up a little, and then you can lift this off, and this becomes also a table for you. You set it down on top of your block or even on the ground. It becomes a rest for the other equipment. And so you can take off then the feeder shroud with this other deep that protects the feeder. And so take the feeder off, hold up. It may be empty. That's been there for 4 days, so it's a good time to check the feeder also when you release the queen. So you can set that aside. You can take off the 2 shims, feeder shims. You don't necessarily have to use these, but it's a good idea to have them. Allows the bees to get up and get around, at least more room for ventilation. And then take off the inner cover. And as you open this, there will be some bees. You can just gently shake them down like that, and it's all right if some bees stay on it. You can simply gently set the inner cover aside like so, and now you've exposed the frame. Generally speaking, I like to pull out one end frame called the wall frame by taking it loose and setting it out. The 2 will have some bees on it. You may shake them a little, but not much. It's okay, just let the bees remain on and set it aside like so. You really want to access the queen, and then give yourself some space here so you can reach down to get the queen. And in the case of the nylon straps, they would be taped down. If it's a metal tab, you can simply take a hold of the tab. And this is one time when you don't necessarily have to have gloves, but I would certainly recommend that you always have at least a veil on. The hive at this time is beginning to be a hive. They've now identified, we hope, with the queen, but the fact is they're not going to be very hostile usually, but always at least have the veil on. So now, as you bring this up, there will be a ball of bees on there around the queen, and you can simply brush them off to make sure that the queen is still alive. She's moving around back and forth in there. And then I would put this back together again. I normally take her after she's beat us, and to keep her warm, just put her in my pocket for a moment. Just gently put her in your pocket. Then put this hive back together again. Gently place all the hives in, all the frames in, and then make sure that the space on each side of the frames is about equal, and that the frames are all pushed together so the bee space is about right. If you would like, when you take the queen out, you might look to see how they're coming along with wax. So you could always lift it up one of those center, and they'll usually start in the center and push out. Make sure they're making wax. I'm sure they will have in 4 days. Okay, so then you begin to reverse the process. And we'll put the inner cover on, just as it was before, with the vents up. Just gives you sufficient ventilation, but also it doesn't expose the brood box directly to air on the bottom. I always put the shroud on next, like so. You right there. Let's get him to fly. He likes this hive. So now you've got the box on, and the bee escape hole, or the center hole, is open down into the hive. So at that point, I take out the queen gently, and check her again, of course, and she'll be running back and forth in there and alive, hopefully. And then I hold the screen down with my finger, take the edge of your hive tool, and just pop out the little staple that's in there. I won't take it out of this cage. pop it out so that that screen is loose, but hold it tight so the queen cannot get out. And then what I do is to place the queen right over the hole, pull back the screen, and allow the queen to walk right down into the hive. You can pull a frame and let her walk right out into a hive, but what I've discovered is that often the queens can fly. A mated queen shouldn't be able to, and it's also just my idiosyncrasy. I like to see the queen walk in there. Some of these cages will have a sugar plug in it, right below the, just below the cork, or sometimes it's totally exposed. And if you'd like, you can pull out the cork and let the bees chew through the cork. That way, they will release the queen. My experience has shown that in some cases, the bees will aggressively get through that sugar too fast. And although it's fairly rare, I don't like it to happen at all. So I will allow them not to do that. And I leave the cork in. And so now she's installed in the hive. And the next step is to just reconstruct it as it was in the beginning with two shims. And that's an option also. If you don't want to use them, it's okay at this stage. Later in the year when you're feeding, it's important to have the shims in there so you have all of that ventilation for the hive. And then if it needs a new bucket of honey, fill it, or a new bucket of syrup, fill it, and then replace the one that was on there. It's a good idea to have two per hive if you like. That way, if it's empty, you can simply take the old one away, put the new one on, and it's a little quicker, and you don't have to fill this on site. It's your call. So again, with your bucket, as you open it, as you turn it upside down, make sure that the residual amount that will leak out is spread around the top of the inner cover, not through the center hole. And just don't put it over the center hole until that excess, until the vacuum is formed. Don't let it drain down the center hole. And then simply put the bucket on the two shims, and then the bees can come up and begin taking it out. Then replace the inner cover, replace the outer cover, put your Kansas windproof rock on top, and you've now installed your queen. So what's next? Wait 5 or 6 days. It's tempting to go back in sooner, but let her begin laying eggs, and in 5 or 6 days you should be able to see eggs and little larvae, and you check it there. And initially, if you'd like, you can spend a little time trying to find the queen. It'll be a little easier to find if she's marked, and with fewer bees in there, and you'll be able to find her easier. But it's not necessary to find the queen. If there are eggs and larvae developing and a decent pattern initially, the bees seem to be doing well, they're okay. Close it back up again and let it go. And then at least every 7 days to 8 days, you need to make sure that that's developing well. And then the next step will be to put on a second brood box when 7 or 8 frames are pulled out, wax pulled out in the first, and then let them build that up. Continue to feed them all through this process. And then once 7 or 8 frames at the top box are built, and since there will be more bees in there when you put the second box on, they can pull out that wax in about a week and a half or so before you put the honey supers on. And so that's how you release a queen, and the next steps to take. And our next video will tell you about how to put on honey supers. Thank you.